Excuses, excuses, excuses. Personal circumstances will always have to be catastrophic to have any influence on your marks. The fact that you don't have enough time because you're working means nothing to the average examiner. In South Africa, we're actually even more harsh than they are overseas, because if you have a problem, they are not prepared to give you a rewrite. My grandson, at the tender age of 13, was hijacked with a gun held to his head and made to lie on the floor. And my daughter also had a gun held to her head as they stripped their car and took it out. It was quite catastrophic, especially since this had happened once before, and my daughter was quite shook up. They had to go into trauma counseling, and my grandson was in the middle of exams. The school did not care. They said it happens too often. We can't be able to help one child because then we'll have to help the others, and therefore he has to write the exams. I must admit, he didn't do too badly. We sat him down, we explained it to him, and he did quite well. But the bottom line is that most institutions will not be sympathetic. If someone's died, normally they'll be a little bit more sympathetic. But we found out in our own personal experience that if you've got an exam to write and you don't pitch to write it, that's it. End of story. You fail. Sleep appears to have a key role in memory function. So it's important for you to have sleep. In fact, some studies suggest that you should study shortly before you go to sleep to help reinforce the memory and free it from other distractions. However, this does not indicate you should study until you fall asleep. Sleep is often the best way to cement connections made before bedtime if you do evening study. So you must try and eat healthily and have a good night's sleep. The other aspect is alcohol. Alcohol and sugar do not do well with studying. Rather eat protein. Protein will give you the building blocks and gives you prolonged energy. Alcohol and sugar gives you a short burst of energy, which normally fades and leaves you quite tired. So eat quite healthily just before the exam, and your body will thank you. It's time to enter into the dragon. What do you do now? Well, first of all, you give yourself extra time to get to the exam center. The reason for this is twofold. One is that you want to be calm when you get there, and you want to make sure that you get to the right center. I've had students that have phoned me up and said, Gail, we have a bit of a problem. When I've asked them what their problem is, they've said, well, we're at Roodepoort, and we're supposed to be in Randburg. Now, Randburg's about 30 minutes away from Roodepoort. So I've had to get in my car, drive out there to take them across to Randburg. When you do something like this, it is the invigilator's right to not give you extra time. If you want to put this to the test, I suggest you get to the exam center a couple of minutes before you are due to write. When you get to the exam center, the first thing you should do, after you've got out of your car, walked into the exam center, put your stuff down where you're supposed to. You normally need to ask the invigilators where you are sitting, especially in multiple exam centers. You then go off to the bathroom. Make sure that you've got everything done in the bathroom. Wash your face if you have to, if you're feeling a bit tired. Make sure that you've got your water with you. Ensure that you happen to have your lip ice. Put it on your lips. Make yourself comfortable. I did not mention, but here is a time to mention it. Wear comfortable clothes. It's not a fashion show. Rather wear something you're comfortable in for sitting, especially if you have long exams. I had one exam of 8 hours. I tell you, my belt of my pants was killing me by the end of the day. I could barely think because it was so sore. So make sure that whatever you're wearing is comfortable for you. When you sit down, remind yourself to start your breathing exercises. You breathe in, you breathe out. You breathe in, you hold, you breathe out. It's strange how such a natural thing can change you in such a major way. So remember to breathe. If you do find that you're a little bit tense, do the 4-5-6 method, where you breathe in for 4, hold for 5, breathe out for 6 through your mouth. There are certain supplies that you need to make sure you've got, and these should be prepared the night before. You need to find out whether or not you need a pen or a pencil. If you have a pen, what color do you need? Do you need a selection of colors? Make sure you take a couple of spare as well. If you're answering multiple choice questions, a ruler is very necessary. So take your ruler, take your eraser, and take your pencils. The ruler you will put down on the question sheet and make sure that your question number is the same as the question answer. This is very important because it's quite easy to make that mistake. You might need a calculator. Normally they need to be unprogrammable calculators or non-programmable calculators, but you should be told which calculators are allowed in your coursework or in your communication with the university or the college. If not, find out from them before you go into the exam room. Make sure you've got a spare battery for your calculator, and after my experience, I normally make sure I have a spare calculator. You may be the type of person that gets headaches, or you may need medication. So take that in with you as well and explain to the invigilator why it's on your desk. I'm the type of person who gets very, very cold in an exam room. My feet freeze. So I normally always take a blanket in, and quite often I take a little cushion because I don't like sitting on hard chairs for long periods of time. My last requirement for my exam supplies always is something to drink. Now this might be water, it could be a herbal infusion, it doesn't matter. My husband takes in green tea. He loves his green tea. I think he's Chinese. So whatever you want to take in, you take that in and you make sure you drink it. I don't believe in coffee or caffeinated drinks for exams. I feel that you should have them about an hour before the exam, simply because it can make you anxious. There's a lot of people that caffeine doesn't affect at all, so you can ignore that last statement. Three, two, one, lift off. Now, you've got your exam paper. Remember what you have to do. Write out the time you have available to answer questions. After taking off the initial time, read in all the questions and divide it by the number of questions you have to answer. If it's a 90-minute exam and it's marked out as 60, you've got 1.5 minutes for each mark. Plan your time accordingly. There's no reason to do the questions in the order they are printed in the exam, so do the easiest ones first, but make sure you clearly indicate which questions you are doing. You can write on alternative lines, leaving every second line blank so that you have space to make changes when you're checking through your work. Always credit your sources if you're doing academic writing, even when you're referring to ideas rather than actually quoting. This is quite important in an exam. If you can't remember who actually said it, then point that out and say you can't remember. You know that this was said by somebody, but you can't remember. It's better than getting caught for plagiarism. Open book exams. Try and plan not to open the book. If you have to refer in detail to a reference book in the exam, pick books you've used for study and know intimately, or you'll be wasting time that you should be spending writing, and I can assure you that you will not have that time to waste. You need to avoid writer's block. You simply haven't got time for it. So if you get stuck on a question, just move on. Don't panic. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Move on. Start doing another one. Start at a question you don't know, and coming back to answer the first question is quite okay. And you'll be amazed. When you come back to the first question, sometimes it becomes clear. You have got 2 questions left to do and only enough time to do one. What do you do? What do you do? what do you do? Well, you do them both. You do the first half of both of them. You gain marks faster at the start of the question than at the end. We have a little acronym that we use. It's called ACUTE. When we check our exams, we say, do we have ACUTE? Now what that means is assumptions. Have you explained them all, even when not explicitly asked? Are the calculations been checked? Have you done things in different ways possible with the time permitting? Did you press those calculator buttons correct? Do the answers of different parts of the question agree? If you have time, you check again. If you don't have time, rather just leave the method. The units. Have you written down the units you're using? Do the units for all the formulas make sense and agree? Now, this is very important because if you start in an electricity exam, if you start talking about ohms instead of talking about watts, you're definitely going to get your question wrong. So make sure that you have checked your units. Have you told the truth? If you're asked to make a list and explain why, don't just make a list. This is the past cause of lost marks. Read the question, answer the question, and the whole question, and nothing about the question. Just like the truth in a court of law. Have you told the truth? So many times you get somebody who gets told to make a list, and instead of making that list, they give you a whole explanation about something. Do you think I'm going to mark it? No. I told you to make a list. One of the things I want to see is that you are able to follow instructions. So when I ask you if you've told the truth, the whole truth, that is, have you been true to my questions? If not, well, I'm probably not going to mark you. Explanations that have explained what you're doing at all stages. Good explanations will get you marks for the method, even if the method is wrong, even if the answer is wrong, not if the method is wrong, I'm sorry. So rather put the explanation down because you don't want to throw away your marks. And that's the acronym ACUTE. Have you explained your assumptions? Have you checked your units? Have you checked your calculations? Have you told the truth and been true to the question? And have you explained where necessary? If you've done that, the chances are you will do very well in your exam. Now you've finished your exam, so start at the beginning and see if you can do those questions in the different ways. Check if they agree. Add more explanations if you have to. Check that your paper correlates answers with the question numbers before you leave. Don't just get up and go. Read through your work if you have time rather than leaving early. Plan that you've got a couple of hours extra after the exam so that you have time to read your work. Let's sum up. Don't panic. Can I say that again? Don't panic. No, really, again, don't panic. Use concise plans to questions because these can get you marks even if you don't complete the question. Be clear. Check your answers correlate to the question number and you will do well in your exam.